Powell. Hi, Toni.
Hi.
Now, if you didn't catch the little quick Facebook Live that Toni and I did together, let me just give you a quick little rundown on who Toni is and why I'm so thrilled to be chatting with her today. Toni is what I consider, and I think what most people would consider, Australia's leader in the field of happiness studies. And not only happiness studies, but happiness, she impacts people's lives greatly with the engaging, raw type of way that she teaches this stuff to people. She takes science and she turns it into very relatable, very warm and comforting information that helps us all. We've got people jumping on and saying, hello, everyone. I actually cannot see what your names are, sorry, but I can just see your comments. Say hello back. Now, Toni, you have had quite a journey, and before we even go into that, I want to tell everyone a little bit more about what you've done. You have been studying happiness for years. You were motivated by your own personal struggles, and I find that most people who have come out the other side have done so because they've started from a painful place. And I take my hat off and admire your perseverance to work your way through all of what you have. And so Toni has spoken alongside the likes of the Dalai Lama, Brene Brown, now I've forgotten his name. What was it?
David.
Thank you, Brother David, and a whole bunch of others. She regularly lectures. She teaches corporate organisations. She speaks at governments. I know that she's even lectured the teachers at my local school, so she teaches at this level and she comes down to the grassroots level and teaches us in the community as well. So Toni she's an international acclaimed filmmaker. She has done a whole bunch of stuff. Toni, how would you sum up your happiness career in a couple of sentences?
I think I'm just telling my story, and I happen to be a natural researcher, so I didn't do well in school. I got kicked out because I kept asking why, and I'm still asking why, and I'd still probably get kicked out of school because I just want to know why about everything.
Well, you got kicked out of school, but yeah, you can still lecture with professors at Monash University, so I think you're doing pretty well.
Yeah. I want to know why, and I want to know why I'm depressed. I want to know why I'm happy. I want to know what works, and I'm relentless till I find out.
And one of the main motivations for the research that you did was actually to find out why relationships fail, right? So you've done a lot of work around relationships.
Yeah, because I had some spectacular relationship fails to motivate me. And I think sometimes as you get older, you start to see patterns in your life. And I started to see patterns like relationship failures over the same thing. And it starts to become the common phenomenon.
It takes a really insightful, intentional person to not only notice, but be willing to examine that and take some action. So I'm looking forward to what you can teach me. So I've just realised that I need to send the link around to the people who wanted to be notified when we went live. So Toni, while I do that, can you please share with everyone that's watching, I want you to know that we are going to spend a few brief minutes just having a little chat with Toni, getting a feel for who she is and why she is who she is. And then we're going to actually jump into the nitty-gritty, really implementable, actionable steps that we can take to really help us feel happier. Let's just keep it simple. It's going to help us feel happier. So while Toni tells you a little bit about herself, I'm just going to send this link around to everyone so everyone can join us. Thanks, Toni.
Okay. Tell you a little bit about myself. 5 kids. Yeah, that was fun. Still have 5 kids. Let's grow up a bit. Really passionate about seeing people have ways to live an easier life. Every time I find something that is helpful, my first reaction is to tell other people about it, and I've been like that since, ever since I can remember. So it's only been the last 8-9 years that I've been able to take that onto stages and workplaces and all over the place put it in books.
Really?
But I've been like this always.
So, Toni, oh, sorry, I think you cut out for it just a little bit there. Were you finished?
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what sprung you into action to research this? Now, I know it's a bit of a funny story about the way that you and your husband hooked up, and also a bit devastating with some of the things that happened post that time as well. So maybe you spend a minute or two just letting everyone know some of the highs and the lows and the catalyst things that has really pushed you in this direction.
Okay. When I was 19, I came straight out of selling drugs and went straight into being married and pregnant. So it was a really big, really leap, unexpected leap. And so I had to first learn how to love someone because I married a man I didn't really love. It's a funny story. And I'm not going to tell it all to you now. I'm going to send it out to you in a few days. So I'll keep you on the edge on that one. We went on, had a happy-ish life, a normal life, and then everything kind of fell apart over around 10 years ago. Everything fell apart very suddenly, very quickly, in terms of losing business, finances, house, relationships. A lot of things happened very rapidly and very unexpectedly, and I didn't cope well. I had always been pretty worried and anxious and really, really, really easily stressed and very fearful. So I didn't really have the skills to deal with a major life crisis, and people seem to have them. I didn't have it. And so I ended up feeling a year laying on the couch crying, wishing I was, it was horrible. And after a year, I thought I obviously can't continue like this. So I started working on, I guess, learning about my brain. I wasn't really interested in a long-term use of antidepressants. I wanted to actually experience real change. So that is what started me on this journey.
Wow. Now that's a pretty powerful statement. I think we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But Toni, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Can I just take a moment to ask everyone, okay, so I did ask everyone if they could hear you okay, and it's sounding pretty dodgy to a couple of people and to me as well. Is there any way that Phil is Toni's darling husband? Is there any way that he can boost the signal at all?
What do we need? They're having trouble hearing you. Earphones. Will this work any better? Let's check it out.
Yeah, just bear with us one sec, guys.
Why don't you bob down and say hello? Hello.
Hey, Phil. Phil's so lovely. The first time that I met Phil, I went around to Toni's house and there was a group, there's a few people there. And the first person I met as I walked through the door was Phil. And I keep meaning to tell you guys that the moment that I met you, Phil, I felt this immense sense of warmth and acceptance and just loveliness. He's one of those men that you just feel instantly comfortable with. So there you go, Phil. That's my gratitude for the day.
Does it sound any better?
What was that?
Does that sound any better?
Oh, it does?
Can you hear me? Obviously not. Then obviously.
No, it actually
you
does.
can't hear me.
Everyone else, please just jump on. Tell me if Toni's sounding a bit clearer.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Just waiting to see if anyone's going to type in that it's sounding a bit clearer, and then we can get stuck in. Anyone? Okay, we're not having anyone. Okay. All right, let's just get stuck in, and hopefully someone will just with people's Toni's feeling and sounding.
How's that? Does that sound better?
Yeah, it does sound better to me. So let's get stuck in. Okay, so Toni, There are so many questions that I could ask you tonight, and I've got a feeling that, oh good, it's sounding good. So I've got a feeling that I'm going to be asking you for a few more interviews on various topics, but we'll try to keep it succinct tonight. So the first question I want to ask you is, what is, if you had to pick something, what is the biggest thing that stands in the way of each of us experiencing the level of happiness that we could be?
Oh, that's easy. No, that's an easy question. That's the easy question.
All right.
Us.
Lay it on us. Did you say us?
Us. Yep. Yourself. Yep. We kind of tend to think it's the circumstances. I haven't got this. I didn't get that. Someone died. I lost my job. Things are tough. Horrible things happen, or whatever. We tend to think it is outside us, but it is not. It is pretty much all.
Don't tell us that. Don't tell me that.
I'm sorry.
There's a reason. There's a reason I don't want to be happy today. No. So, okay, if it's us, can you tell us? Okay, this is something that I found interesting to read in your book. Can you tell me a reason why we want to point the finger, or why we want to blame outside circumstances and not ourselves, or take responsibility ourselves for our own happiness? What is that?
I think we probably feel that it's somewhat threatening to take responsibility, that it's much easier to find another reason rather than look inside. We're not too keen on looking inside. That feels a bit threatening. We're worried what might be in there, I think. I think we think that if it's us, then we are to blame, and therefore we are wrong, and we don't want to be wrong, and our brains don't like us to be wrong. So it's just we like to put it elsewhere. But what I've found is, rather than understand, when I've understood that it's my responsibility, that starts freeing me from a victim mentality. And when we have a victim mentality, we are at the mercy of what happens to us. And then life's quite scary. If you don't have a victim mentality, if you have a mentality that I'm influencing this, then you have an enormous amount of freedom to change things. And so it's actually a freedom, but we feel like it's not a freedom. When going, I'm responsible, don't point the finger at me. Yeah. Actually, it's a freedom.
I am aware of a few times in my life where, it's my marriage, of course, where I have really felt like I was the one in the right. You know, I'm the right one. I'm looking at this situation correctly, and he is not. And it's, I'm sure there are way more situations than what I can think of where that's happened, but there's been a couple of situations where I'm quite consciously now going, hang on, actually, I could be somewhat looking at this incorrectly myself, and let's have a look at this objectively instead of thinking who's right, who's wrong, let's pull and push. So, yeah, it's an interesting topic, and when I'm yet to finish Toni's book, but the part that I have read delves into that, and it really challenges you to think about how you're approaching a situation. So that's, yeah. Anyway, thank you for that question about what's the biggest thing that holds us back is us.
Yeah.
That's a topic that I'd love to delve in deeper with you at another time, because I know one of your catchphrases is that we always find what we look for, right?
Yep. Find what we look for.
It's a little taste of what we might have to come with Toni, but I want to delve into these three top things that we can start doing today to help us feel that greater sense of happiness that we know that we're able to feel. So, Toni, can you take us through those three things, please?
Oh, there's about 103 things. So I'm going to just choose a few. I think the very first place where light cracked into my life and allowed started to really allow big growth was I was telling some sob story to someone going, oh, well, and the woman asked me, is that true? I was saying so-and-so had done X, Y, Z, and it was so unfair and mean. And she said, is it true? And I'm like, of course it's true, it's true. And she kept challenging me on it until I realised that I actually didn't know if it was true, that I'd thought things and assumed because I thought them that they were true. And I began to question my own thoughts. And when I stopped this addiction to believing that what I thought was true, that allowed a lot more light in.
I like that.
Yeah.
Addiction to what we think is true. I like that.
Yeah, it's quite, it really unravels a lot of stuff and allows a lot of learning if we can start letting go of that. Second one.
So, Toni, before you move
yep.
Sorry, totally interrupting there. But before you move on, wait, can I just ask you one question about that? About if you had to say that first point in one sentence, can you just repeat what that would be?
Stop believing your own thoughts.
Okay. All right. So on that note, I'm going to ask you two questions. The first is, how do we identify what our own thoughts even are? And two, how can we just take one step back and look at them? And then we'll leave it there, because that we could go down a trail of worms. That's not even a term. Open a can of worms.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. We could be here for a couple of months.
If we can spend just a couple minutes on that, because I think that's such a powerful topic, and if we can just look at that for just a second, that would be great.
Okay. So a thought goes through your head, and probably a fairly common one that goes through most of our heads is, I'm stupid, or I'm ugly, or I'm fat, or whatever, you know. So a thought goes through our head, and we kind of adopt that little thought and take it home and look after it, and it becomes part of our reality. And I think starting to look at what you're thinking, starting to step back and go, okay, I just thought this. Why would I believe that? Or why do I want to have that thought? Or is this thought useful to me? So I now question my thoughts and just go, is this a useful thought? Do I want this thought? Is this a helpful thought? And if it isn't, then I start having less and less to do with that thought. I don't, just because I've thought it for 40 years doesn't mean I need to keep thinking it.
I imagine no, it's a good answer. I imagine that it would take a lot of practice to be able to sit back and observe your thoughts rather than being in it first person all the time. Takes a lot of intentional living and habitual awareness.
I think a good way to start with that is to listen to the words you're using. I think that is where I started. I started listening to what I was saying. And then kind of backtracked from that, because I'd be saying to Philip, oh, I'm stupid, or I did this dumb thing, or I did this, or this is terrible. And as I started to become aware of what I was saying, I started to become more aware of what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's a good first step. That's something that we can all do. And we can even enlist the help of someone close to us to help us with that too, right? They're obviously hearing our thoughts. As what we're saying, and they can give us some feedback. If you have a trusted someone, perhaps it would be good to enlist their help to help you identify your own thoughts and
if you're brave.
Yes, you're ready for someone else to do that for you. Okay, that's awesome. So stop believing our own thoughts. Number 2, what would you say that is, Toni?
Adopt a useful theory about life. I know it's. I decided this year to adopt a different theory about life. I've become increasingly aware that we don't know anything. Billions of people, billions of planets, billions of. I heard astrophysicist talking on the radio last week, saying that these universes pass through each other like ghosts. That a universe of billions of planets will pass through each other like ghosts. We haven't really got a clue what's going on in the world, and our knowledge is so little. And it occurred to me last year that my belief system on many areas didn't serve me well. I had a belief system that this was all there was to life, that it was a brief period, that then we died and then there was nothing, which doesn't really motivate you big picture, and doesn't really motivate personal growth and things. And or even though I was really into personal growth, there was some aspects that I struggled with, partly because of my belief system. So I decided to deliberately design my own belief system that served me, and I decided there was a benevolent universe, that I was part of something special, and that I was, this more than a body, and that what I did really, really mattered, and that every single person I met was a holy encounter.
That's beautiful.
And I just decided to adopt this belief instead, because the other belief did not serve me and led me to a lot of depression. And I actually don't have any evidence for the other belief, just as I don't have huge amounts of evidence for this belief. But in the long run, it doesn't matter, because in the long run, I think because we don't know what's out there, it's better to live like it's important.
I like
Does that make any
live.
sense? Am I insane?
Not insane. I think you're more sane than a lot of us. But you know what? I think that type of belief system can be layered on top of many existing belief systems that, many of us, we're all so different. We all have our different belief structures that we come with. But what you're talking about is something that could very easily be layered on top of, what we all believe, or what we may not sure of what we believe.
Absolutely.
And I felt that when I met Toni, guys, when I met Toni for the first time, and now I've met her a second time since then, I felt that from her. Now, she's never told me that before until right now with you guys, but I felt that she was approaching it like a holy encounter, like she just said. And I can tell you that it makes a significant difference to the way that the relationship is then approached. So it's really interesting that you should say that.
Yeah. And it, what is most interesting to me is though that simply shifting belief systems has dramatically changed my life and dramatically changed relationships. So it's suddenly like just simply deciding to behave as though the world is different, then the world is different. And it's interesting. Now, there's a lot of, there's names for this. There's a mindset, your underlying reality, but your philosophy about life. There's all sorts of ways to look at it, but that underlying philosophy will dramatically affect every single area of your life. And so it's quite important, and often I don't think we have examined what that is. And I think it is super useful to examine what that belief system is.
No, I think you're right.
I didn't really recognise what my belief system was till I looked at it. And then I saw, that's not going to serve me.
I think a lot of the time we take a very action-based approach. Well, I do take a very action-based approach to life, which certainly has its pros and it serves in many ways. But it's not until we really step back and look at the things that are a bit less obvious and behind the scenes where we can really start making some massive shifts.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Well, moving to something a bit more actionable as well.
Okay, action. That's actually very active. Like the belief system stuff is actually very active.
Oh,
It's something I actively engage with every day.
yes,
So,
okay. It's not something that you automatically think of, like it's not usually on a to-do list, and you know,
no.
so it's funny that it wouldn't normally come to my mind to go there, but I can see what you're saying. If that's something that you've intentionally decided to do, which all of us should, then we can put it on the to-do list and it becomes something that we intentionally live in a habitual way.
So the thing that really was the big game changer for me, and that opened up so many changes for me, was the practice of gratitude. And so that if you want a really quick way to change your life, and in fact to change virtually every area of your life, then the practice of gratitude's it. It is an astonishingly effective way to move stuff around. And that I started practicing 9 years ago.
Okay, now Toni, this is where I'd really love to delve in with you guys, with you, because this is obviously the focus. Well, is it fair to say that it's the focus of your work, gratitude practice?
It's very core. It's like I think it is a very core thing to everything. It's very core to being able to love. It's very core to dealing with stress. It's incredibly effective for depression and raising happiness. So it's very core to almost everything I talk about. But I could talk for all day and not mention it. But it is sitting there underneath everything.
Interesting. I think, you know, sometimes we might hear the word gratitude and almost switch off, roll our eyes and go, oh, I've heard this before. I do feel grateful for life, blah, blah, blah. But can you break down how this is so important for us, and perhaps even maybe what it looks like in day-to-day life, so that we can really examine what you're talking about?
I kind of thought, like, I'm a bit of cynic, and you know, I'm not, like, you know, this positive kind of sweet stuff used to just make me want to throw up.
I think it's so funny, but
like, I love. There's a quote that says something along the lines of, a positive attitude won't solve all your problems, but it will annoy enough people to make it worthwhile. Did you get that? It's just like, positive people are really annoying. And so I'd be much more on that kind of thinking naturally. And I kind of thought gratitude was a bit girly, a bit female, a bit wishy-washy. But it actually is a mental discipline that makes you so tough, it makes you a super person. it's an incredible thing. Gives you superpowers to resist self-pity, rejection, just anything really. I was stunned. I expected it to make me happier. I knew enough that I knew it would make me happier. I knew it would probably have a big impact on depression, but I had no idea what it would actually do.
So you actually were in a heavy depression. So and I've heard you say this publicly, so I'm sure that you won't mind if I say that you were so deep that you were actually suicidal at the time.
Oh, you know, that would have been such a picnic. Suicide was like, please, anything but this pain, you know. I mean, people often say suicide's attention getting. I honestly don't think it is. I just think it's the desire to be rid of that person in you that is making life so difficult, and that's self-hatred and the pain of self-hatred that's so hard to live with. So I think you're just trying to stop pain. really, and I just would have given anything. I was later very grateful I didn't own a gun. Because if I'd had a quick way, I do think I would have probably taken the quick way out.
But somehow, in amongst that, you identified that gratitude might be a different way out for you.
I knew all about gratitude. Like the whole time I'm really depressed, my daughter's got this massive gratitude project. So I knew about gratitude, but what I got confused on was, because I had a gratitude journal, I try and write in it, but in the end, I still was very lost in pain in all the things that I had lost and felt so hard done by, and people had been so horrible, I felt. It wasn't until I began understanding neuroscience that I began to see the application of gratitude as not a feeling, because I thought gratitude was a feeling. Something good will happen and then I will feel grateful. And that doesn't happen when you're really miserable. You know, something good can happen and you're not going to feel anything. So I was trying. Pardon?
Sorry, there's a quote that you've said that just sits so well with what you just said. It was, gratitude makes you happy. Happiness doesn't make you grateful.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's not happiness that makes you grateful. It's gratitude that makes you happy. When I understood the difference there, because I was waiting for something to make me grateful, but I couldn't find it. Once I reversed this and went, this is not an emotion, this is a discipline, totally changed. So once I began practicing gratitude as a discipline and understood how it was working with my neural pathways and how it was changing my brain, then things changed rapidly.
Something else I've heard you talk about in one of your interviews, I heard you make reference to the Karate Kid. Can you tell us briefly about the Karate Kid and how that relates to gratitude?
I think this gratitude is a practice that is very similar to the wax on, wax off in the Karate Kid. You know, there's this kid doing this thing that's so boring, and he doesn't understand what this is doing. And I practiced gratitude. I saw this little tiny wax on, wax off thing that I was doing every day. I saw differences, I saw changes, but it wasn't until there was a big thing that I suddenly realized that in that 12-month period of doing this little practice, I had rewired my brain. And then when a big thing happened, my response was entirely different.
You realized how strong you were from all that habitual, boring,
little tiny thing, you know, that sometimes you don't feel like doing. You know, sometimes you're like, I don't really want to be bloody grateful right now. I'd like to stamp my feet instead.
Well, I'd like to ask you that question at some point down the track. I've heard you say that we shouldn't deny ourselves a little bit of sorrow or self-pity in times where things are hard. Like, that's not healthy to just go, oh, I'm just going to be positive right now through the midst of really hard stuff.
I definitely don't think gratitude and learning to have a different mindset is meaning traveling on this little happyology fluffy thing at all. I think, you know, we have a full range of emotions because we need a full range of emotions. We're not meant to be up all the time. I was talking to my granddaughter the other day, and she said, what superpower do you wish you had? And I said, oh, unconditional love. And we were talking about invisibility and all those things. And she said, what are we doing that for? And I said, because it would just make you so happy to unconditionally love. And she goes, you don't want to be happy all the time, you know. You're never going to appreciate being happy if you're happy all the time. And she's like, no.
That's
and that is the good answer. It's true, you know. And I will, you know, something will happen and I'll make a deliberate choice to feel self-pitying for a while, or to play with a bit of resentment for a bit, or whatever. But I know I've got a way out. I know I'm not stuck in these things.
Mm. Mm.
And I think it's getting stuck. That's the problem.
So you actually consciously go there, but then you consciously come out of it too. Yeah, that's enough. Okay, I've had my time. Now let's get back to business.
Yep.
So someone's just asked
actually it'll get boring to me. What was once one, you know, like we love a little bit of resentment.
Yeah,
we do. We love a little bit of that, and I, you know, they did it wrong, that sort of thing. We love that feeling. But more and more I'll find that feeling a bit boring after a while. Yeah, so my tastes for my emotions change.
Taste for emotions change. That's funny. Someone's just asked us, and I think it leads me to a question that I wanted to ask you anyway, and that is, what does gratitude as a discipline look like? You know, what is your gratitude practice? What's your strategy? What does it look like in your day-to-day life?
Okay, when I started out, so to go right back, when I realised this was a practice that would change my brain and I was just choosing to do it in that light, I knew I needed to teach my brain to access feel good feelings that it wasn't used to, that I needed to retrain it. So initially I started just simply with trying for a minute or something to enjoy something. So I started this practice of just minute by minute enjoyment. 6 months into that, but like I couldn't really start out at real gratitude. I had to kind of train myself to actually learn to trigger good feelings. So I did that practice for a while. Then I started to be like standing in a line at a supermarket, and rather than being like, God, why am I always in the long line? I'd be like, what could I enjoy here? What could I, what's wonderful here? What's nice here? What's just starting to really train my brain to pick up different information. 6 months in, I ended up somewhere for a day at a water park with 6 kids, which would be my idea of a nightmare, really. 35 degrees. I didn't like noise. I didn't like wait. Like, I had a list of things that I didn't like and didn't do. And by then I had enough skills that rather than have my day ruined by being a situation that I didn't like, that in fact I hated, I was able to have one of the best days of my entire life up to that point, simply by having learned to take a minute at a time and enjoy that 1 minute. And I learned that I could actually change my experience of almost anything, you know, long-held dislikes of situations, or I don't do this, I don't like that. I could change fairly rapidly through being very deliberate to go and enjoy what I didn't like.
So, sorry, I'm just going to pause you there, Toni, because I think that's really powerful. So you're saying that in the everyday moments that we all experience, whether it's driving the car, standing in the line at the checkout, whatever it might be, they're the moments that we practice this discipline of what can I enjoy right now. And the more we do that, the more we practice that, we're building that muscle of gratitude and good feelings and triggering those feelings intentionally. Then when it comes to stuff that we've had long-held dislike for, we can actually switch it on and go, you know what, I'm enjoying this. And you can actually really override those feelings. That's massive. In and of itself, that's massive.
I'm going to tell you a quote here. I'm going to read this. While the human brain receives 11 million pieces of information every second from our environment, that's a lot of information, it can only process about 40 bits a second. So your brain's only taking in 40 little pieces of information. So that means your brain's choosing what bit of information it's going to take in, what to process and attend to, what massive chunk of information to dismiss or ignore. So your reality is a choice. What you choose to focus on shapes how you perceive and interpret your world. So what you're doing every minute of every day, everything you watch, everything you talk about, everything you engage in, the conversations you have, the interests you have every day, you are informing your brain what you're interested in and what it needs to find for you. So it subconsciously then starts to search the world for what you have told it is important. So that's why this little practice of just going, what's good here, starts to rewire what information your brain takes in. Now, that's not gratitude. That is just starting to trigger different neural pathways. Gratitude in its real essence is the expression of thanks, and that has got to be done to someone. So that's to another person or to a bigger entity, which is part of the reason why I wanted to change my belief system to something that had something bigger in it, because there was this need for something bigger. Yeah. I kept coming, gratitude created this awareness that I needed to thank something bigger. There was so much to thank for that I couldn't thank individuals for.
So you thank individuals.
Yeah, I think one of the things, there's a lot of talk about mindfulness, but this is interactive mindfulness. Yeah. And, really our true happiness comes from relationships and connectedness. So this is the avenue to really get connected to people. And that connection creates happiness in them, happiness in you, bonding, trust, all sorts of things. But gratitude practice is actually an other-oriented thing. There are appreciation practices like having a little journal and writing down all your stuff. At the moment, I'm writing, and I think that is a good thing to do. At the moment, because I've been saying for years at workshops, I bet if I asked you to, you could write down 1,000 good things in your life. Well, I'm currently writing that list.
Oh, and that's a good project.
It's actually blown me away. I haven't really thought I had that great a childhood till I started writing, and I started in childhood. 200 things later, I'm not out of childhood. And suddenly I'm seeing my childhood really differently. I'm like, I didn't even know I had such a great childhood.
Amazing. And that makes up what you said. What you look for is what you see. And if you're constantly looking for things to be grateful for, that's what you'll see. Can I ask you something, Toni? Go on.
Well, I think especially in relationships, like with a partner, when you've got a husband or a kid or someone who lives in the house with you, the easy way is to notice what they don't do, where they miss out, where they mess up, where they leave their socks or the toilet seat or this, all the irritating things they do, and to verbalize them. And that trains us to look for them. And eventually, 20 years down the track, that's all we can see. And we get divorced.
And look, I think a lot of us could put our hand up to looking for the things that someone's not doing. We all, like I've heard you say a few times, we all love looking for it. We love looking for it in those people who we rely on. And it's so damaging.
Yeah, we don't understand how damaging it is and how that's actually affecting our view. I was speaking at an event in 2012, and a woman came up to me at morning tea. I was talking on gratitude. She came up at morning tea and said, I'm going to divorce my husband. I don't even know where she got divorced, why she even brought it up. And she said, I'm going to divorce my husband. I said, why? And she said, oh, he's a good guy, but I'm just over it. I'm not in love with him, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, can you do me a favor before you do that? Just every day for the next 30 days, tell him something wonderful about himself. Just do that one thing. Tell him something wonderful about himself and ring me in 30 days. In 30 days, she rang me and said, I'm so in love with this man. Just one simple thing a day. They've just been away overseas on this, I don't know what they're celebrating now, 35th wedding anniversary or 25th or something. So she's still in love with this man. All she did was change what she noticed about him every day. And she just raves about this one little practice that totally changed how she saw her husband.
And how often do we look for the complex solutions? You know, that's a basic solution, not always easy, but basic and so powerful. I'm conscious of the time, especially for those on daylight savings time, and I just wanted to ask you a couple of things real quick. This might just be a few word answer, but how long does it take for the neural pathways to rebuild once you start this gratitude practice?
Look, I think you notice changes pretty quickly, but those changes go on and on and on. So I noticed changes 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 4 years. I know it continually changed and deepened and started waking me up to lots of other things. I think it's an incredible awakening process to practice gratitude.
Yeah, and I know that you've spoken to me elsewhere about the science that backs all this up, and it's quite astounding.
Tons of it.
So real quick, what's the one thing that I should say this? There's a quote that a lot of our community have heard me say before, and it's by Dr. Libby Weaver, and it says, "Why do we do what we do, even though we know what we know?" And I love that question because it calls us out on the fact that we already know a lot of this stuff, but a lot of the time we don't do it. So what's the difference between those who actually hear this stuff? They go, "Oh yeah, I should really do that. I know the science is backing it up. I know that Toni's saying it. I know I've had personal experience with it," but yet we don't follow through either for long or at all. And so what's the difference between those who do it and those who don't? Like, what's the goal
I think
of that?
we are ready to hear things at different times, and we may learn something, but we learn it at a little level, and there's a moment when we're ready for things and we hear it at a different level. I think that's part of it. I think there's a word called propinquity. I did a lot of research into why we go to something, hear this incredible speaker, and then go home and go, "Yes, I'm going to change," and 3 weeks later we can't remember a word they said. We don't know what we were excited about. Propinquity, which means nearness of place. So it means shove the change you want to make in your face so you can't get away from it, so that you're falling over it all the time, which means don't get a gratitude journal and stick it in your bedside drawer. It'll never come out, or it might for 3 days. You know, make it in your own road. That you need to take sort of big action to put it in your face. Like if you were going to want to get fit and you made the television only work if you were on a bike, you'd probably get fitter than if you had the bike in the garage. So really shove it in your face, get accountable, that sort of thing. And I think also we're living in a entirely materialistic, consumer-driven society that is telling us the opposite of this all day long. And
true.
so we're not really hearing this constantly enough. And I think in order to balance that, we need to make deliberate choices. Like I deliberately make sure I'm listening to talks and things pretty much every day to keep me going where I want to go.
I have a friend who lives very intentionally. I admire her a lot, and she teaches her children very intentionally, and she has these daily habits that she wants to instill in her kids. And so she has this mantra in her home, and it's every day, every day, every day. And she writes it on a Post-it note and puts it on their mirror every day, every day, every day. So it gets instilled in them that this intentional living gig is something that we must do every day, every day, every day, and be aware of. And like you said, in your face. So I like that a lot.
We are the sum of our habits. That is who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we are habitually bitchy, we're a bitch. And if we're habitually kind, we become kind. You aren't just kind or aren't just, we choose these things constantly, but frequently, because they happen quickly, we don't realize we're choosing.
Yeah, I would agree with you very much on that. Now, we're wanting, we could talk all night, but let's make another time to chat another time. But Toni, I'm going to send, there's a TED, Toni did a TED talk, and I can't remember the exact title of it now, but it spoke about our relationships and specifically her marriage. It's quite funny, it's quite thought-provoking, it's quite confronting, and I tell you what, in a short 10 minutes, it can really transform the way that you approach a marriage. And in fact, it transformed Toni's marriage. So I really want to pass that on to you. So I'm going to put the link in for that TED talk for you guys so that you can look at that. Now, also, Toni's been incredibly generous with the Whole Food Collective community. Her mission is to really get this message out there. So she's actually got this. Can you say what it is? It's an e-course that is. It's an email.
I've called it the Gratitude Adventure. It is what I wished I'd had when I first started to make big changes. I wished I'd had someone to come and tell me what to think and what to do to change the way my brain worked. And so later on, I wrote a 90-day program that gives you a 10-minute thing to do every 3 days. There's tons more if you want to, but it gives you just a simple 10-minute exercise every 3 days that over 90 days will change the way your brain works. So it's kind of all done for you. It's easy.
That's amazing. 10 minutes a day, right? Something small every day for 90 days. Rebuilds the neuropath.
Yep. And it's easy. It's pretty fun. And there's tons of extra stuff if you're someone who would like to do all journaling and other things. And there's articles and videos and all sorts of extra stuff. If you've got time and you want to delve, you could spend an hour or two in an email. But you can also do something in 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, I'm very much looking forward to doing this. And guys, Toni, like I said, has been incredibly generous because she's so passionate about this. I've just realised that I can't even put the link up on here because we're in VLive instead of Facebook. So as soon as we get off, I'll put it in there as a comment on the Facebook thread. But she's giving us 50% off, and it's already very affordable. So it's actually coming from, what is it, 93? I've got a different screen on.
98 down to 49. So for the next 7 days.
Yeah. So we're going to open that up for 7 days just for our little community. And Toni has had amazing feedback on this program for years and years, right? This is what tried and true principles that stand the test of time.
Really tried and true. Yeah. We just get a great feedback about it. I don't think I've ever had anyone unhappy with it yet. I don't think I've ever had a request for a refund.
That's pretty insane.
So yeah.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to it. Toni and I have sort of been bouncing around a whole bunch of ideas where, you know, we can do more to get this message out there, because I just love Toni's approach. She's so real and down to earth and warm and really gets that science across in a very relatable way. So Toni, I will.
We haven't had much time with the science tonight. The science is fascinating, though.
Yeah. Maybe we can delve into that another time. But I tell you what, I can speak for all of us here tonight. When I say thank you, I'm going to express my gratitude to you tonight for being here with us and giving of your time and your generosity in giving us such an amazing deal on your very beneficial program that you've taken a lot of time writing.
Oh, it's just delighted to be here. I love what you guys are doing. I just think it's wonderful. So I'm a big supporter.
That's beautiful. Well, before we close up, let's just recap what we've learned tonight. So we have learned what the biggest...
I want to quickly give people 3 things to do.
Yeah.
And quickly give them 3 things to do. Okay. Give thanks to someone every single day. Okay. Thank someone and really think about it. Don't just go thank you. Really think about it, what you're thanking them for. Deliberately look for something to enjoy. You know, just constantly look for that. Train your brain to look for enjoyable things, then your brain will deliver you enjoyable things. And if it isn't who you want to be, if that thought, that feeling, that emotion isn't who you want to be, acknowledge it, feel it, but then let it go. Don't take it home. Don't make a bed for it. Don't let it live in your house. just let it go. And this is a constant thing I'm doing all the time now. I see resentment come up, I'll just sit there with it for a few minutes and then go, yeah, I see it, I'm human, I'm not going to judge myself about it, but neither am I going to take it with me. So I don't go, oh, you're bad, you're resentful. I just go, oh, there is resentment, and then I just sit with it a bit, feel it, and then I just go, I'm not keeping this going. And that, yeah, it's really simple stuff. It takes no time.
Yeah, I like it. And the biggest takeaway for me from talking with you, Toni, is the necessity for us to be incredibly intentional and aware of ourselves and noticing everything around us. So thank you. We've learnt that we are the biggest things standing in our own way of happiness. We've learnt the 3 biggest things to help us along the way. We've learnt to examine and not always trust our own thoughts, and to examine them and see them for what they really are. And we've learnt about our belief structure. We've also learnt about our the power of gratitude practice and ways that we can do that. And then Toni's left us with those 3 amazing actions. Thank someone each day, deliberately look for something to enjoy each day, and examine those thoughts. And if it's, and feel those feelings, acknowledge it, feel it, let it go.
And don't judge yourself about having those feelings and that, really. Don't.
It's pretty windy tonight. So, guys, Toni, thanks so much again for being with us. We really appreciate it. I'm going to put those links up to the email program that I'm definitely going to be doing, and I'll talk to everyone about it as I go. And the coupon code that everyone can use to get that amazing discount. So thanks again for everything.
Pleasure. Been delightful. Thank you for having me.
Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.